So then the next candidate we're going to talk about is, the next state we're going to talk about, Wisconsin, very Midwestern state, but also a very college college-centric state, or with a very high population of well-educated people. Very very important to the progressive um, sort of intellectual elite, or if you want their society. The University of Wisconsin at Madison, which is I have a personal friend. He's a former, I think he was either a faculty member or just a student there, and he's since come to change sides in politics. But Wisconsin is sort of a state that Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, they've been underperforming for a long time there, sort of because there's a town versus gown split over there. On the one hand, where you have the intellectual progressives are not, they're not really living in the same world as the rural people around them. That's why you see the people of Green Bay, the people, if you watch that series, the one with Stephen Avery, Making a Murderer, there's sort of a dichotomy there. There's the well-educated portion of the state. There's the rest of the state. They're a bunch of hicks, just like the rest of us. Or maybe I'm not a classic hick. I mean, I do have a couple degrees, but culturally, their differences are so large that there's a lot of the state that they don't connect to the traditional democratic narrative. Even the union workers. Wisconsin is a very strong union state, and yet in 2010 they elected a very anti-union governor, Scott Walker. They recalled him and lost. They lost to a governor that twice in 2 years. In 2 years they lost twice to him in 2 years in an election and a recall election. So. And all based on union agitation against him, and the unions flopped on their face and lost. And then in 2014, they lost again to him. And he's passed right to work legislation, which has cut union influence in the state. And now the state of Wisconsin is doing fiscally much better than it was under Governor Walker's predecessor. His name escapes me at the moment, but you have so anyway, why are we talking about it? In 2008, Hillary Clinton really should have, this should have been a red flag for her. In February, she goes into Wisconsin, a heavy union state, which she should have won with a cakewalk. There shouldn't have even been a contest there. And what happened? Barack Obama, who comes from Illinois, which is the big rival for Wisconsin, by the way. And he's the Chicago guy. Chicago versus Green Bay. There's all the cultural elements that would have ruled that Barack Obama should have lost. For the fact that Milwaukee is one of the worst segregated cities in the United States. So why would there's a lot of racist white voters that would not have voted for Barack Obama, even in the Democratic side. And I know that for a fact because I come from sort of a background where I know people like that. Let me just put it that way. Well, there was all the reasons that he should have lost. And Hillary Clinton completely choked there so bad that it was worse than in 2016 when she did it again somehow. And Bernie Sanders beat her by 13 points instead of 18. But 13, geez, I mean, to lose by 13 points. And let's take a look. She had, this was a primary where almost 1 million people showed up. And Wisconsin is a fairly sparse state in terms of population. So just over 1 million people, and she lost by a massive margin. And in the previous election, there was higher turnout in the Democratic race. So, in the previous election, it was over 100,000 more voters. They showed up and dealt her basically an ass whooping that would have made a new wrestling movie. Like Mickey Rourke probably could have pile driven her like in that movie The Wrestler. I mean, sorry for the fucked up analogy that totally went nowhere, but she got Mike Tyson. There you go. There's your analogy. Barack Obama, Mike Tyson her in 2008. And this year, Bernie Sanders, if you want to put a different stroke on it, he went and sort of what's that guy? Floyd Mayweather. He just wore her down and knocked her out. It was a complete another sweep. It wasn't a first round knockout, but it was a knockout, believe me. So her whole Wisconsin belief that she's gonna, the polls are showing that she's leading in Wisconsin. The fact is that Wisconsin is not going to be as easy of a contest as she would like, as it should have been, because Ted Cruz did win Wisconsin. Ted Cruz has come out also in support of Donald Trump lately, and it's not a very congruent relationship, but we've got a lot of sorry, I'm checking my fantasy football scores right now. It's Sunday, but there's Ted Cruz did win Wisconsin by a healthy margin, but the Republicans had actually a larger turnout than the Democrats, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see the tally. Yes, they had almost 100,000 people more than the Democrats that day. So there's plenty of people that are going to come and vote for the Republicans. I'm not sure it's going to be for Donald. I don't know if Donald Trump is going to get a cohesive collection of everybody. Again, there is a Republican Party division between the pro-Trump people and the anti-Trump people. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but really there's a massive amount of people that are not going to come out and vote for Hillary Clinton, especially if you think about it. There's two factors in play in Wisconsin. In the Republican on the Republican side, you have a lot of gun owners in the Wisconsin rural areas. You have a lot of people that supported Governor Walker. They're not going to want a retreat back to, having to be basically under siege with the issues that are going on nationwide. They're not going to want to be minority party governed in Wisconsin, while on the federal level they're getting basically besieged by Washington, which is it's the way that they're describing it. It's not the way Ramon's describing it, it's the way they're describing it. So the fact is that Bernie Sanders voters are one problem for the Democrats, whereas the Republicans have the advantage of the gun owner vote, which I think is going to overwhelm the opposition to Trump. The gun owners are not going to stay home just because of Donald Trump. They're going to come out as anti-Hillary Clinton voters and vote for him, vote for Donald Trump. Maybe some of them will vote for Johnson. And then the other issue is that Dane County, which I'll move my cursor, I think it's this county over here. That's the location of the University of Wisconsin. Dane County went by a 2-3 split to Bernie Sanders. And Dane County, why do I mention that? Because if you look at the totals of voters in these counties that voted Democrat, there's only a few that have double digits. In fact, some of them they just have, that they're in the tens of thousands. So that would be 5 digits. So a lot of these counties are fairly small, so they're not going to have that many voters anyway. And they might just vote for Donald Trump anyway. There's not that many people. But Dane County was a massive victory for Bernie Sanders, over 100,000 people. Okay, so that's 6 digits. Sorry about that. So there were 61,000 that voted for Hillary Clinton. On the other hand, Milwaukee is, I think it's Fulton County. It'll come to me. It's just Milwaukee County. Sorry about that. So it did go for Hillary Clinton. That was the only county that went for Hillary Clinton. And by how much did it go for Hillary Clinton? By about 7,000 plus votes, which is not that huge of a margin. But if you have one county that's voting for you in the entire massive state of Wisconsin, and it was the same case in Oregon. In Oregon, it was even more pathetic because the county that went for her was about less than 1,000 people came out to vote at all in the Democratic primaries. So we're talking about an enthusiasm gap here. That's how Bernie Sanders won. and so let's talk about those two counties, Milwaukee County, back to there, and Dane County. So Dane County, here I'm hovering the cursor over it. That's where the University of Wisconsin at Madison is, and the key there is that these university students and professors, they're going to have a tough choice. I think a lot of these progressives are going to reject her and vote for Jill Stein, and I've already addressed that before. And they're going to reject her because, for one thing, they've protested so many wars that now what are they going to do? They're gonna vote for the candidate that's asking for multiple wars now? No, not going to happen. So, to make a long story short, I don't believe that she's going to lose Dane County. She is going to win, maybe by some sort of healthy margin, but it's not the margin she needs in order to have a very good showing on the state level. Whereas the other two candidates, Stein and Gary Johnson, they are going to have very healthy showings in Dane County. And Jill Stein, there's an outlier possibility, and don't call me on it later, but I think it's possible she could win that county. And the reason is that these people, they're gonna cast a protest vote, but it's not the same protest vote as Republicans or independents that are voting for Donald Trump, because those values aren't consistent between the two. Their values are progressive, so you could see one county flipping to Jill Stein, but she's going to have a hand in hurting Hillary Clinton's efforts statewide, and especially in that one county, which is a very important county, very, very important in every election for a Democratic candidate. If you can't carry Dane County, you can't carry the state. Or I'm sorry, you will carry Dane County, but you need people to show up. If they're not going to show up and cast in waves, in massive waves for the Democrat, then you're shot. It's just a fact. So we're going to move on to Milwaukee County. And what's the factor here? The factor here is that Milwaukee County has experienced a massive problem this year, which is that it experienced the riots. I think the riots happened in August. And hold on, I'm going to stop here for a second.